Good afternoon and welcome to the June 12th edition of Office Hours presented by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. My name is Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy, and I thank you so much for joining me today. We had a lot of questions coming from our community, and before we get to those questions, I just want to give you a brief rundown about the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness, the event that you are tuned in today. Which is office hours, and then a disclaimer and some updates, and then we'll get into the questions that have come in about student loans. So, the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness was founded in 2021 with the vision that all college and career school students within the state will have the opportunity to achieve these six pillars of collegiate financial wellness. Those are being creditworthy, ready, resilient, empowered, successful, and thriving. If that's a mission that you are in alignment with and would like to support, you can visit us online at mccfw.org to learn more about the organization, our events, and ways that you can support. Before we get into the questions that have come in about student loans, I do want to share a quick disclaimer, though, and that's that office hours is presented for informational purposes only. The information does not include or it does not constitute personal, legal, or financial advice. We do the best we can to stay up to date with the many changes that are happening in the world of student financial aid, especially student loans. But you really have to take all of this information and combine it with a deep familiarity of your own personal circumstance, including your student loan portfolio. So, again, we do the best we can, but this is not personal, legal, or financial advice. So, some quick updates before we get into the questions. The first update, of course, has to do with PSLF. We have still received several messages that are like, what's happening with Mohila? Or, I submitted an application. Why haven't I heard anything? Is PSLF gone? Some people have asked us if the Supreme Court is getting rid of PSLF. And I just want to be very clear with you. Public service loan forgiveness is still here. So PSLF is not up for any challenges that have risen to the Supreme Court level. It's not gone away. It's not going to end with the IDR adjustment deadline on June 30th. PSLF is still here. What's happening is we're in the midst of a processing pause. So if you submit an application for PSLF during the month of, if you submitted one during the month of May, or you're submitting one this month, which is June, you'll notice that you're not receiving a payment count that reflects the employment that's included on that application. And you are not alone in that. That's because we are in a processing pause. So there's a pause on the processing of PSLF applications while the Department of Education transitions to a new way of servicing loans for PSLF borrowers. Once the pause is over and that transition has been completed, then you will begin to see updates to your account that are related to those PSLF applications that were submitted during the months of May and June. We don't have an exact date on when the updates will come out, but the pause was announced initially to cover the months of May and June. So hopefully in July, you will see some traction. But the bottom line is PSLF did not disappear. So please do not worry. If you are looking to Mohila to try to figure out what's going on and you're not seeing anything, it just means that the transition is underway. And hopefully in July, you will see an update to your account that will accurately reflect your qualifying employment. Second thing is the IDR adjustment extension. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago that the previous deadline for the IDR adjustment was April 30th. Now we are looking at June 30th. So you've got about 18 days from the date of this broadcast to make sure that your loans are on track to get the greatest benefit out of the IDR adjustment. People want to know many times, what does that mean? Do I need to do something? I recommend that everyone goes to studentaid.gov, go through the two-step verification and get to the dashboard. Take a look at your loans to make sure that your loans are ed held. When I say ed held, that means held by the Department of Education. You can look at your loan servicers, and if your loans are ed held, then you'll see Department of Ed in front of the servicer's name. Or if they're in default, I believe it's default management collection systems. Those are federally held too. If you see that the loans are federally held, that means that your loans are going to be included in the IDR adjustment. That means that later this year, you will receive a payment count to let you know how close you are to those cancellation milestones of 20 or 25 years of repayment. If you do not see Department of Ed in front of the name of the servicer for your loans, then that means that your loans are commercially held. Commercially held loans are the ones that people need to take action with by June 30th to make sure that they are on track for the IDR adjustment. So, if you want those commercially held loans to be included in the adjustment, you would need to complete the application to consolidate, and that's online at studentaid.gov. And you want to make sure that you complete that application by June 30th so that those commercially held loans will transition into being federally held. And just by virtue of being federally held means they will be included in the IDR adjustment. That shift from commercially held to federally held can also help people who are public servants, because if you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness, direct loans are the only types of loans that qualify for that. So if you have commercially held loans and you work for the government or for a 501c3 nonprofit organization and you're wondering why you haven't been able to get your loans forgiven yet, it's because your loans are not direct. And if they're not direct, they don't qualify for PSLF. So you would be another person that would need to take action by June 30th, going to studentaid.gov to complete that application for consolidation. I will say that for most people, if they're looking to get credit toward income driven repayment, and all people who are looking for public service loan forgiveness, consolidation makes sense. But this is also something that you should analyze on a case by case basis. For most people, it works because it puts them on track to get the maximum amount of credit for income driven repayment. And it also puts people on track for public service loan forgiveness when they wouldn't have qualified if they'd left those loans commercially held. But in some cases, especially for people that have Parent Plus loans, consolidation can get a little bit tricky, especially when you're trying to land yourself an affordable payment each month. So again, take what you get from us, but also go to studentaid.gov, take inventory of your loans, and then make the decision about whether you'd like for your loans to be included in the IDR adjustment. And if you're a public servant and they're not direct loans, you really don't have a choice. You've got to consolidate those loans to get them on track for PSLF. And everything you need to make that decision can be found at studentaid.gov by logging in, viewing your loan types, and completing that application to consolidate where necessary by June 30th to get the greatest benefit. As far as events are concerned, I just want to give a quick shout out to Team McPhew, especially Melanie Mason and Tiffany Brown. They were on site at Northwood Elementary School up in Baltimore City yesterday, making sure that administrators from Baltimore City Public Schools were able to take a look at their eligibility for benefits through IDR and PSLF and complete those applications on site to make sure they are on track to get that benefit that they have earned through their service to Baltimore City students. So to the educators, thank you for your service. To Team McPhew, that's Tiffany and Melanie in this case, I appreciate you. And really just excited about the results that we're going to see in the coming months. I also want to give a quick shout out to the team at Allenwood Elementary School in Temple Hills, Maryland. I popped up there on Monday and they greeted me with a nice award just to say they appreciate the work that Team McPhew has done around public service loan forgiveness and helping some of their staff get rid of those student loan debt burdens after more than 10 years of service in the public school system. So congratulations to everyone that has reached the finish line. To those of you that are still making progress, we're here to support you. And just know that we're here with you for the journey. All right, I think that does it for updates. Now we can go on to the questions that have come in from our community. The first one is, I'm wondering if I can stay in the PSLF program while also working abroad for a company or hospital that isn't based in the United States. This is a great question because we know that there are public service roles that happen outside of the United States. However, public service loan forgiveness is a program for US based organizations. So for this answer, we went straight to the Department of Education to pull the specific language for you about PSLF. The first point is, if the organization does not operate in the United States, your employment does not qualify for PSLF. The second point is that full-time employees of 501c3 organizations may perform their work anywhere. So let's dissect that a bit. The first point is if the organization doesn't work in the United States, the employment does not qualify. That doesn't mean that you can't work outside of the country. You can work outside of the country, but for an organization that operates in the United States. The second point there about being a full time employee, I want to specify that for the purposes of public service loan forgiveness, full time employment means that you work on average at least 30 hours per week, not 40. So if you work on average at least 30 hours per week directly for a qualifying employer, then that employment should count toward PSLF. And when you see things like 501c3, 501c3 is a designation as a public charity from the IRS. So that again indicates that this is an organization based in the United States. So all of that means for this person, if you already have credit toward PSLF, you're working for an organization that operates in the United States. If you shift to another organization, even if you're performing a similar role, if you shift to another organization that's based in another country, then your future employment will not continue to count toward PSLF. So the recommendation here is that if you'd like to continue earning credit toward public service loan forgiveness, then you need to seek employment with an organization that operates in the United States. It doesn't mean that your work has to be limited to the United States, but if you're working in another country, it has to be for an organization that also operates in the United States. All right. Let's move on to the next question. That is, can I consolidate my father's plus loan with my own loans to qualify for PSLF and lower the payment since I am a public servant, but my father is not? This is a good question that comes up quite often because as higher education expenses have continued to rise over the years, we're seeing that both students are taking loans for themselves and parents are taking student loans out for their children for the same educational experience. And consolidation, especially during this IDR adjustment, is something that's helping people get more credit toward forgiveness, either through PSLF or through income driven repayment. However, consolidation can't take place across borrowers. So if a parent has loans and a student has loans, those groups of loans cannot be consolidated through the federal government because they were borrowed by different people. Another way of saying this is that a borrower can only consolidate loans that were taken out by them or in their own name. So in this case, we have a father and a child who both have student loans taken out for the same educational experience. But the father's loan belongs to the father, the student's loans belong to the student. The federal government does not offer the opportunity for people to combine their loans together anymore. So, if the father is looking to pursue public service loan forgiveness, then he would need to look at his student loans by going to studentaid.gov and seeing, first of all, how many there are. With Parent Plus loans, after this IDR adjustment period is over, in order for the Parent Plus loan to continue earning credit toward PSLF, that Parent Plus loan would need to be consolidated, and then the father would need to enroll in income contingent repayment. That's the only income driven repayment plan that's available to Parent Plus loan borrowers. So he would need to enroll in that plan to keep earning credit toward public service loan forgiveness and forgiveness by way of income driven repayment. The student is a separate matter. If the student had a job for a public service employer, then the student could perhaps consolidate their loans if it was necessary. But if all their loans are direct and taken out without any gaps in between, then the student would not need to consolidate, but they would need to enroll in an income driven repayment plan as well to make sure that their future payments after this IDR adjustment keep on counting toward public service loan forgiveness. Quick note about Parent Plus loans. With Parent Plus loans, the only income driven repayment plan that's available for Parent Plus loans is again income contingent repayment. And for most people, the income contingent repayment plan is the most expensive one. So it's really not attractive. but it's the only income-driven repayment option that's available to parents who want to pay on an income-driven repayment plan, unless they do something called the double consolidation. The double consolidation, I need several more slides to talk about this, but basically, the double consolidation is for people who have, you need at least two loans for this to work. But with the double consolidation, you consolidate in two cycles. And you do that so that by the time you complete the final consolidation, the basically it's like the coding, the parent plus coding of that loan is no longer visible, at least at the top. So because that parent plus coding is not um, apparent was a bad choice of words, because it's not as visible, that would make the newly consolidated loan um, have the opportunity to enroll in some of the cheaper income-driven repayment plans. So the double consolidation process can be a lengthy one. For this parent, it might be a possibility if he has more than one parent plus loan, but that process has multiple layers, and it's really driven by the motivation to get a lower payment on an income-driven repayment plan. Without double consolidation, you're looking at ICR. With double consolidation, it's a possibility that the parent could get access to SAVE, and SAVE is usually the most affordable income-driven repayment plan that's out there. So perhaps next time I will go more deeply into the double consolidation so that you can see more details about who could benefit most from that and what the mechanics of it look like. Quick note though about the double consolidation. It's often referred to as a loophole because it is a way for parents to get access to a repayment plan that they're technically not eligible for. And that loophole is going to be closed. So, to access the benefit of the double consolidation, a person would need to make sure that they have completed this process of the double consolidation applications by July 1st of 2025. So, we've got about a year for people to get in the pipeline for this double consolidation benefit. And the benefit is that there's access to more affordable income driven repayment plans. All right. So I do want to double back. I noticed one of my questions is missing, but I definitely want to get to the question because it also gets at the issue of consolidation. So let's double back to something I breezed over just a few minutes ago. The question here was about consolidation. We had a person who had recently consolidated and they selected a different servicer in the consolidation application. Then they heard from AidVantage. And when they heard from AidVantage, the communication did not include the income driven repayment plan that the borrower selected inside of the consolidation application. So their question was, do I need to be concerned because I applied for SAVE and when I heard from AidVantage, I didn't see anything about my application for SAVE. All the other options were different and more expensive. So for the answer, I just wanted to tell the person, please don't worry. This is normal, hence the hashtag Phew. So this is a normal happening. It's normal because even though you can select a different servicer within the consolidation application, all of the initial processing of consolidation loans through the federal government is handled by AidVantage. So let's say I selected Mohila within the application to consolidate. If you select Mohila as your servicer, it's natural to expect that the party you should hear from about the consolidation loan would be Mohila. But since the initial part of the processing is handled by AidVantage exclusively, you're going to hear from AidVantage first. Usually, the first letter you get, we refer to it as the 10-day letter because it tells you your application has been received. You've got 10 days to cancel it or make changes. Please reach out to AidVantage if you've changed your mind. Within 10 business days, you need to reach out to them. And that letter, sometimes, quite honestly, it scares people because they think, did I make the wrong choice? So why do I need to reconsider this? I thought I was doing the right thing. It's a standard letter. It goes to everyone and it comes from AidVantage because of AidVantage's role in the consolidation process, taking care of all of that initial piece of the consolidation process. So after you hear from AidVantage, you'll likely hear from your old servicer. You usually get a letter that says that your older loans have been paid in full. That just means the consolidation process is moving forward. Your older loans have been paid off. A new loan for the exact same amount is about to be originated. So AidVantage takes care of that initial processing. Once your new consolidation loan has been originated, it's going to be handed off to the new loan servicer, and that should be the servicer that you selected within the application. Your loan servicer, not AidVantage, unless you chose AidVantage as your servicer in the consolidation application. Your loan servicer is going to handle the request for an income driven repayment plan. And they should let you know when that IDR request has been processed. And from what we've seen, that usually takes about 30 days. I will say, though, that in recent months, we have seen things taking a bit longer because of high volume with this IDR adjustment kind of looming in the background and the deadline getting pushed, back multiple times. We get these spikes, spikes in people who want to complete the applications, spikes in people contacting their servicers because they're aware that a deadline is coming, but not always certain about how that deadline concerns them. So if you get that 10-day letter, please don't be scared. If you don't see anything about your application for an income driven repayment plan included in those initial communications about your consolidation loan, do not be afraid. You can always submit another request. But our advice is to just wait a bit. Wait until you hear from your new loan servicer, and they'll let you know the status of that IDR request. And if they do send you something that reflects that a request, didn't go through for some reason, you can call them or you can go online at studentaid.gov, log in and submit another IDR application once that consolidation loan has dispersed. All right, so let's move on to the next question. All right, this question has to do with PSLF. And the question is, can I make a lump sum payment to reach my 10 years of repayment to be forgiven since I already have 8 years of credit? All right. So, like I said, this question is about PSLF. As you all know, PSLF is a program that takes a minimum of 10 years for you to gain approval for. And in some cases, people have made lump sum payments instead of paying once per month like you normally would on your student loans. They decide, you know what, at the top of the year, I want to make a payment to cover the next 12 months. And the question that we're getting, like this one, it's often I'm trying to speed up the process. So if I make a lump sum payment today, because I'm paying months in advance, can I get to PSLF in advance? And the answer is no. PSLF takes a minimum of 10 years. There's nothing that you can do to speed it up. For this particular borrower, they entered repayment in 2016. They consolidated their loans and have a remaining balance of about $10,500. They've just recently applied for an income driven repayment plan. They have been paying under the standard plan for years, but they're going to enroll in ICR, which will put them at a payment of $78 per month. Based on that $78 monthly payment, they have calculated that they can pay the 2 years worth of payments in advance. So 24 months of payments at $78 per month. They've worked it out to be $1,872, which they can afford to pay now. And at the heart of this question is, if I pay now, can I get PSLF now? And as I said earlier, unfortunately, the answer is no. You can't speed up the process by paying extra upfront. You can pay extra, but that lump sum payment will basically be accepted, but your PSLF will not be approved until after you have employment verified to match every month that that payment was applied to. So I want to share the official language from the Department of Education with you, which is pretty much what I said, but paying extra won't allow you to qualify for PSLF sooner. They give a bit more detail here about making prepayments. You may prepay or make a lump sum payment, which will first apply to any missed months and then to future months up until your next income driven repayment plan certification date or 12 months. So I'm sharing this not to discourage you from making a lump sum payment because it has its benefits. It's easier to just get it out of the way and know that you've already paid for a certain amount of time and just focus on your work. But it's not going to speed up the process. If you want to know more about how the prepayment works, you can visit studentaid.gov and search for the PSLF FAQ page because they have detailed FAQs for each piece of eligibility for the program, whether it's qualifying employment, qualifying payments, qualifying repayment plans. You will find it all there at studentaid.gov/PSLF. So for this borrower who entered repayment in 2016, you're still looking at 2026 as the earliest date that you could gain approval for PSLF. And that's based on having to be in repayment while having qualifying employment for 120 months. Okay, so I wish you the best on that journey. Just stick with it. And if you choose to prepay, perfectly fine. Just make sure that you go back and complete the PSLF application to document your employment once you reach that 120th qualifying month. All right, let's move on to the next question. That is, did you have your employers verify your employment again at the end of your 120 payments? I'm filling out the tool, that's the PSLF help tool on FSA, and it's requesting employer signatures again. Is that correct? And this is the perfect sequence of questions because I just answered that. But yes, you have to verify your employment again after you have made that 120th payment or during the adjustment after you've reached that 120th qualifying month. The reason is your PSLF applications are only counting employment up to the signature date that's on the application. So let's use the previous borrower as an example. They have 2 years to go. If they submit a PSLF application today, that certification would only cover employment up until today. They could continue to work for a qualifying employer for the next 2 years, but their loans will not be forgiven until they officially document that employment. And that's what the PSLF application is for. So you have to make sure that you file your PSLF application after you've made that 120th qualifying payment, because then they'll know that not only did you make the 120th payment, but you had the qualifying employment at the time that you made all of those payments since your last certification. Background on this person: they've got 16 years of public service employment. They certified their employment in the fall of 2023. Five employers, including their current employer, for which they have 10 years of employment. Their loans were moved to Mohila. Mohila so far has approved about 9 years of payments, and they've had currently 50 months that are not qualifying due to forbearance periods. I want to pause for this borrower just to say that take a look at those forbearance months, because during the IDR adjustment, forbearance months are treated differently. It's possible during the IDR adjustment for you to get credit for months that were spent in a forbearance. So the specific requirements around the forbearances have to do with how long the forbearances were. So if there were forbearances of at least 36 cumulative months over the life of any loan, or 12 or more consecutive months of a forbearance, then that time should count toward both the IDR adjustment and PSLF. So to have a number as high as 50 months that are in forbearance, I would think that those months should qualify toward PSLF. So I would urge you to go back to your account, take a look and see if those forbearance figures have been updated. Keep in mind that we are in a PSLF processing pause, so you might not see an update just now, but I would strongly encourage you to pursue that once the processing pause is over, if you haven't seen a change already, because a forbearance that lengthy over the life of a loan could qualify as credit toward PSLF, and that 50 months will push you over the 120 that you need in order to gain PSLF approval. So just to revisit and make sure the answer to the question was clear. The question was, do I need to submit an employment verification slash PSLF application again after I've done it before? And the answer is yes. If you have not had 120 qualifying months certified, then you need to make sure that you submit another PSLF application at the point that you make that 120th qualifying payment or reach the 120th qualifying month based on the rules of the IDR adjustment. So make sure you keep your employment up to date. And I hope you get credit for those forbearance months and that I'll push you over the 120 milestone. Congrats in advance. All right. Next question. This is shifting gears a bit, moving from PSLF to the FAFSA. And the question is, where can I get help to fill out my FAFSA? Um, I want to stress to everyone the importance of beginning with studentaid.gov, or you can go to FAFSA.gov. There's some sites out there. You might hear FAFSA.com, FAFSA.net. Also might come across some sites that are requesting that you pay to complete the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, so you do not need to pay, in any site that is asking you to pay to file the application is not the legitimate FAFSA. The FAFSA is available from the Department of Education online for free at studentaid.gov. Now, if you've already gone to studentaid.gov and you're having some issues or difficulty with completing the form, that's where I would highly recommend you reach out to your school's financial aid office so that you can get some help from a financial aid counselor to help you with the FAFSA. I do want everyone to be mindful, though, that we are in an exceptional year where the FAFSA is concerned. This year, there were some significant changes made to the FAFSA as a part of something called FAFSA simplification. And once everything is over, it will be easier and more people will have access to funding. However, the implementation of it has had some rough spots. So your school's financial aid office, they're playing catch up on a lot and they're trying to get you the information as quickly as possible, but they want to make sure that they're being accurate. So if you've reached out and you haven't heard anything, you might need to try again or call because they're, like I said, they're playing catch up. They're trying to get things together, but they're also only able to move as quickly as the information comes into them that they need to give you an accurate picture of your financial aid offer. So please be patient with them. If you're having trouble, you can also reach out to us at the center. Um, I know office hours is primarily about student loans, and that's the space that we've been in for the past almost 3 years primarily. But we're committed to helping current students as well. So if you have a query, please do visit our website at mccfw.org/contact, and you can submit the contact form with your question, and we will get back to you. I will say that we have some high volume going on too. So if you don't hear back from us right away, don't be discouraged, but we can provide you with basic help to answer your questions about the FAFSA. So reach out at mccfw.org/contact. All right, next question, also related to the FAFSA, and that is, what is the deadline to apply for FAFSA if I want to start college this fall? So, quick note about the FAFSA and the cycles. Right now, people who are looking for funding for this fall, this would be considered the 2024 to 2025 academic year. So this fall, you're looking at the 24-25 FAFSA. And usually you want to complete that form as early as possible. And depending on your state's priority deadline, you want to complete it probably around March or April, depending on the state that you live in. But basically, it's ASAP. But I do want to also share that because the FAFSA is for the entire academic year, that's 2024 to 2025, you actually have until next year to complete the form. The very last date depends on what the end of the academic year is considered by your college or university. So the deadline is a ways off because right now we're in June of 2024. And if you're enrolling in the fall, we're talking about the 2024 to 2025 academic year. If you want money for the fall, then you need to complete the FAFSA ASAP. Um, just to share some details about the timeline and why completing the FAFSA ASAP is so important is because the information from your FAFSA is going to be used by your school's financial aid office to generate what's called an offer letter for you. That offer letter is going to contain different types of financial aid that you're eligible for. That could be federal financial aid, which includes um, grants, work study, if you're eligible, as well as loans. It could also include state financial aid, which is usually scholarships and grants. There might be some other awards that you're eligible for too. But the point is, you will not get an offer letter if you will not get an offer letter that includes federal financial aid if you have not completed the FAFSA. So it's really important to complete that FAFSA at studentaid.gov as soon as possible to make sure that when you do receive an offer letter, that you are being offered every bit of aid that you are eligible for. The typical time frame that we see is going to be different this year because of the delays that have been associated with the changes in the FAFSA. But what we usually see in terms of billing would be that bills are sent in July, and that's your semester bill. It lets you know the balance that needs to be paid to cover everything related to your fall experience. The bill is due before class starts. So typically, the due date is within 30 days of the billing date. It might be late July, it could be early August, but the bills are expected to be paid by then, or you're expected to have entered into a payment plan or arrangement to pay the bill. Sometimes the payment plan is that you pay a lump sum up front and then you pay a third of the remaining balance each month over the course of the next 3 months. But all of those things are expected to be taken care of before classes start, and classes typically start in late August. Now, I've laid this timeline out for you. I'm very well aware that things don't often pan out like this. The bills usually go out, like clockwork, but in terms of the bills being completely paid, for a lot of people, that doesn't take place until after classes have started. But what we want for you here at the center is for you to be ready on day one of your classes. Day one is not a time where we want you to be worried about getting your books or getting into a class that you should have been able to register 4 weeks ago, or being worried about being dropped from a class because your bill is not being paid. Having to worry about those types of things prevents you from being ready for academic success on day one. So, all of this stuff is related. If you don't complete the FAFSA as soon as possible and you don't get your offer letter, you don't know what type of aid you're eligible for. You might receive a bill that you believe you cannot pay. So complete the FAFSA so that your offer letter can be accurate. Your bill will reflect the charges, but your offer letter will reflect the aid that you're eligible for. And we want to make sure that you have done everything you need to do to confirm the highest level of eligibility. So all of that to say, yes, with the FAFSA, if you're planning to be enrolled for the entire 24-25 year, you've got a lot of time technically to complete it, but that doesn't mean that it's in your best interest to wait that long. What's best is to complete the FAFSA as soon as possible so that you can become aware of how much aid you're eligible for. You can satisfy the requirements to make sure that you get that aid, and you can have the best chance of having your bill paid before classes start so that you don't have to worry about the financial side of things when you're trying to focus on your academics. All right, next question. Oh, this is also about the FAFSA. It says separated parents, but they were never married. How do you proceed with FAFSA filing? Okay, so first thing is that with the FAFSA, if you are what is called a dependent student, then the FAFSA will need to be completed by you, and you'll also have to have a parental contributor, at least one. And who contributes information to the FAFSA does depend on marital status and level of support. So we pulled information for this answer straight from NASFA, which is the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. 2 points here. The first point is if your parents were never married and do not live together, the parent who provided more financial support in the last 12 months must provide their information. So for this person, they started off by saying their parents were separated, but separated implies that they were married at some point. But since they were never married, we can use this guidance here. Your parents were never married, do not live together. So when you're trying to complete the FAFSA, you as the student would need to do your part. And then you would also need to get your parent who provided more financial support in the last 12 months to provide their information by being a contributor to the FAFSA. Another point I wanted to share, though, is that if both parents provided equal support or they don't support you financially, then the parent with a greater income and assets is supposed to be the one to provide their information. Um, I know a lot of people will look at that and say, well, if the parent doesn't support the student financially, then why would the parent with the greatest amount of income and assets have to provide their information if the student doesn't have access to it? I don't make the laws, okay? So I can't really explain that to you, but this is, what's required. If you're in a situation where you're a student and your parents do not support you and you do not have contact with your parents, make sure that you reach out to the financial aid office at your school, because if you are able to prove that you don't get any support, you're not in contact with them, then there's a process by which you may be deemed as independent. It's called a dependency override. This is not something that is easy for you to get just because maybe you're not talking to your parents right now or something like that. This is for people who are not supported by their families, perhaps are not in touch with them or have been estranged for quite some time. But there is a way that you can prove that you're not able to get support or information from the parent in that way. Once that's proven, you could gain eligibility to more aid because you do not have the support of your parents, and that lack of support is documented. So hang in there. This can be quite complicated, but you have to start as the student. And the place for you to start is studentaid.gov to make sure that you get on the path to completing the FAFSA, which will then lead you to get the offer, which shows you how much aid you'll have and just gives you a better picture of what you can expect to have to contribute to this higher education experience. All right. So, as always, we wrap things up with sharing some resources for Marylanders, particularly student loan borrowers. So, I just want to make sure that we recognize the Student Loan Ombudsman's Office for the state of Maryland. If you're having a problem with your student loan servicer, the best place to start with resolution is directly with the servicer. But if you've tried that in good faith and you're not able to get anywhere, then I would strongly advise you to advocate for yourself with a third party, starting with the Student Loan Ombudsman for the state of Maryland. And this is for Maryland residents. The Ombudsman's Office can help you with loan servicer problems, which might include failure by the servicer to communicate with the borrower, errors in crediting principal and interest payments, misapplied payments, inaccurate interest rate calculations, billing errors, loan consolidations or modifications errors, and/or inappropriate collection activity or tactics. So as you can see, lengthy list of concerns that the Student Loan Ombudsman can help you address after you have already gone to your servicer and tried your best to resolve the problem directly with them. You can get more information about the Student Loan Ombudsman by visiting the state's Department of Labor, and there you can find the form to contact the Ombudsman and move toward resolution for your issues with your servicer. All right. So that does it for this edition of Office Hours. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this on Wednesday, June the 12th. And if you have any questions that come up after this broadcast, please do feel free to reach out by visiting our website at mccfw.org. contact. You can complete the contact form and we'll do our best to answer your question. You can always tag us on social media at the MCCFW. That's our handle on Facebook. I'm also on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. So thank you again for joining us, and please do keep in touch. I'm going to check the comments to see if we have any questions. And after that, we can wrap things up. I did get a question that came in, and this is related to PSLF. It says, this is from a borrower who has already applied for PSLF before, already has a payment count. Their loans are on the new Mohila platform. And right now, they're unable to find their actual up-to-date progress. The borrower knows that they are a matter of months away from PSLF and used to be able to see it online. They did see something that the PSLF pages on the website are being updated possibly in July. Does that mean we won't see anything until then? This is a great question, and it's so timely. Right now, the Department of Education is going through this transition of the servicing for PSLF, for borrowers who have PSLF. So for myself, my loans are with Mohila. I received an email from the Department of Education that says Mohila is transitioning to a new platform. You can log into the new platform using a new link. So I need to log on to that new Mohila link to take a look and see what things look like. Perhaps we'll make a video about that too. But there's a new platform for Mohila. So Mohila is still my servicer, but the experience is going to look different for me because of this overall transition led by the Department of Education. So right now, two things are happening. We have a servicer platform transition, and we have a pause in the processing of PSLF applications. So for people who are already on the path and you're not seeing anything in that new portal, that doesn't mean that your history has been wiped out. It doesn't mean that you have not made progress toward PSLF. It just means that that new portal has not been updated yet. So it it would have been useful just to download records prior to the transition and the pause, but I just want you to not worry because if you looked at studentaid.gov, you would see that whatever was in Mohila for your qualifying payment count, with the exception of maybe a lag of about 30 days, that information was also reflected inside of studentaid.gov. So if you looked at your individual loan records within studentaid.gov, you would see your qualifying payment count listed there. So FSA has the records. It's just that right now we're going through this transition period. And it kind of reminds me of the shift that took place when Fed Loan was previously handling PSLF and then things moved to Mohila. Initially, people were logging into Mohila's portal and did not see any of the credit they had earned toward PSLF that they had seen reflected on Fed Loan's portal. And then over time, records transitioned, PSLF qualifying payment counts were restored, and everything was okay. I don't know how long it's going to take for things to work with this transition, but I imagine it will unfold the same way. So please do not be alarmed. Know that we're in a pause as well as a platform transition. And there will be some times where you're unable to see the records that you were able to see just a month and a half ago. So hang in there. You are still on track. This borrower, I believe, you are supposed to reach 120 in October, if I'm correct. You're still on track. We're just waiting for this transition to take place and for the pause to end so that everything can move over to that new platform. And once you make that 120th payment in October, send in that PSLF application again so that you can see the 120 and finally have that debt forgiven. So hang in there. Let me see if we've got any other questions that have come in. Let's see. I don't see anything so far. I'm going to check one more spot. All right. It looks like we took care of the questions. So homework for me is to go to the new link for Mohila so that I can see what's available for viewing on my own journey to PSLF. I've shared with pretty much everybody, the PSLF's not going to help me because of the fact that even though my work has always been either for universities or for my own company with nothing but nonprofit clients, the time that I spent working as a consultant was for my own company, which was set up as a for profit entity. So I have about 5 years of repayment history that will not count toward PSLF. And I've got about 5 more years to go until I pay off the loans under the standard plan anyway. However, I did apply for PSLF because I wanted to see what that process looked like because I felt that it would help me be able to inform people from a more accurate place. And so my loans are with Mohila, and I did get the message that they have been moved over to the new platform. And I'm going to check out the new platform and see what I can find regarding my loans, as well as my own qualifying payment count, which is pretty low, but to be expected, granted, we're given my employment history. So stay tuned. I will make a special video about that so that we can get more used to this new Mohila platform together. And if you have any questions between this broadcast and the next one, please do again reach out through that contact form at mccfw.org or tag the center on social media. We are at the MCCFW, or you can tag me. I am at Tisa Silver on social media, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. We'll do one more comment check. I don't see anything on the phone. Don't see anything on the laptop. So I will bid you adieu on this Wednesday, June 12th. Thank you as always, and be well. Bye bye.